last video, I was talking about the stimulus. That is how I call a child atypical. So, for the sake of the parents, I make it much more simpler with an example. Like many of us question that why the child always put his or her hand on the ear. Suppose he is in a railway station in front of a train, and there is child, right? There are two group, right? One which is having a typical behavior and another with an atypical behavior on the autistic spectrum of disorder, where we get to see that some childs are putting their hand on the ear to stop the sound coming from the whistling of the train, of the engine of the train. Now my question is why it is so. Why a typical child is not doing it and an atypical child is doing it. By the therapist who actually give therapies to overcome this kind of disorder, they say that it is actually a stimulatory behavior. But I give you the explanation that why it is called a stimulatory behavior. This is because this child, which is a normal child, is concentrating on the train, the whistle of the train, because the train gonna leave the platform. So the child is concentrating on that and concentrating on moving into the train, right? Because he's waiting there for the train long time in the platform. And all of us will do that. We are standing in a platform, right? We are waiting for a train and the train gonna leave because it's whistling, right? And that's why we will get up into the train. We'll concentrate on that, right? So other people, others say 5,000 people are there in the platform. We are not concentrating on those. So that's why in our, ear, we have the sound of only the whistling of the train. But for an atypical child, right, with this kind of stimulus, they have the input stimulus, not only that particular whistling of the train, but also all the different noise, that is all different sounds of so many different individual, right? Even the chai wala, right? Everyone, this their sound comes to amplifies and come to his or her ear. So of course, if so many different sound will come together into your ear, what will happen? It will eventually end up in a noise rather than just a sound, right? So at that time, to protect him, right, it's a noise for him. That's why put his hand or her hand onto his or her ear. That's the reason. So that is the basic difference between a stimulus of a typical child and an atypical child, and that is why they behave differently. Like walking on the toe, right? How can you treat this? Suppose a child is walking on the toe, right? And a normal child, I will not say normal, rather, I'm sorry, it's a typical child, is not walking on the toe. So what is your explanation? The explanation is nothing. That is the toe, that is when we actually walk with our feet, right? And we can walk on sand, we can walk on green grass, we can walk on floor, right? Without a slipper or a shoe. We don't feel any kind of sensation, right? It's absolutely no sensation, right? Which is not acceptable, and that's why we have no problem. But for a atypical child in autism or autistic spectrum of disorder, they come in form of sensations, severe sensations, right? Like for example, if you have a cavity and you take a hot water, you have severe sensation, right? Painful sensation. And that's why you go to a doctor to fill your cavity, to do a root canaling, right? But here also, when they walk with that in various, texture of the floor or ground, they have different sensation which they do not like, which is not that much acceptable by them, which is not very much fruitful or feasible with them. So that's why they avoid that. They just walk on the toe. Then they will not get, their feet will not get come in touch with the ground, and there will be no sensation. That's the thing. So that is the thing. That is why we have a therapy which is tactile therapy. If you force the child to walk in barefoot in sand, right, in green grass, in an uneven, textured road, street, barefoot, this sensation goes. And there are so many other therapies in the tactile therapy. So if this can be done, then, so these are some of the example of a typical response and an atypical response. Thank you once again. That's all for now.